Oh, that's a good start. There we go. That's better. Good morning, everyone. How the devil are you doing this fine day? I'm going to go straight over to the chat because I've had this from Jim saying, "Morning, peeps. Just finished the beginning of last night's show. Yeah, last night's show we had a few issues. We've still got them, actually. Some of the messages I'm sending over to YouTube aren't getting through, so my apologies. If you comment on YouTube and you don't get a response from me, chances are it's not me, it's the technology. But yeah, we had a really good show. I'm going to talk about it at the end of the show, but I do want to do something very, very quickly. While I was still talking last night, after Alan Limoges from CM Labs had left, he sent me a message to say basically how much he enjoyed the conversation, but how insightful you lot were. I mean, I went in, trying to understand simulations and everything else, but the directions that last night's conversation took was entirely down to Gary, to Jim, to Nigel Williams, to Mick Norton. Absolutely top notch. So I tip my hat to you all. I think it was. I think Alan was very good. I think the technology is very good. I think you lot were even better. So well done on that. Chris Rod says, morning all, failed last night, too busy oiling the neck. It's still there for you to watch should you so desire, but we will be talking about it a bit later. Mark Whiting is here as well. Gary says, I suppose it'll be a quiet day today, Mark. Not as busy as yesterday. I've got one more thing to do after today's show, but yeah, it should be a little bit quieter. Jamie is here as well. Morning all. Love to you, Dan, you man. Found work near home thanks to your group, so back from Bristol. Fantastic stuff. Good to hear that. Dan says, sorry, didn't get to join last night. Completely left me too many things on my mind lately. I can understand that entirely. Not a problem at all. And first off the mark this morning, way back, just before 9 o'clock, was Gary. Says, good morning, guys. Wonderful After Dark show last night, Mark. Very informative and interesting. Thanks. You're very welcome. As I say, thank you to all that took part. You made a good conversation, a great conversation. So thank you for that. You'll know that yesterday I was due to speak to one of the Oxfordshire radio stations about the 10th anniversary of Didcot, which I did, and it was all hunky-dory. How's this for an eye-opener? The lady, a young woman that interviewed me, we did it over Microsoft Teams, and she was a young, attractive woman, but I'm knocking on the door of 61, so I'd describe her as a girl, and we were chatting about Didcot and the wider implications, the length of time it takes to conduct these investigations. And at one point I actually stopped and I said, look, I mean this in the nicest possible way, and with the greatest respect. How old were you 10 years ago? And she said, I just started high school. The investigation into Didcot has taken so long that a girl, as she was, was at primary school, just going up into big school. It's taken her right the way through that, right the way through further education, college, university, full-time employment. That's how long it's taken. And that's, obviously she's unconnected. She's just working as a journalist or researcher. Think about that from the perspective of the four bereaved families. I know some of them, I don't know all of them, but is there now a teenager who vaguely remembers his grandfather or his uncle? 10 years, that's what we're talking about. Passage of time is a key component of our news story today. So I want to crack on. I am going to crack on. Let me start with a bit of this. It is Thursday, the 19th of February. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition. The Walrus of Demolition, the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming, the authentic voice of the global demolition industry. In today's show, we're going to get a preview of the next generation Hyundai HX400. Volvo conquers South Africa. We're off to Pennsylvania with Hitachi, and our MB Crusher sponsored Countdown to Conexpo series continues with LGMG, not XCMG, LGMG. They come from the same place, but it's a different company. Plus, in today's edition of Mark's Morning Monologue, which was entirely inspired by last night's chat, Digitising Competence. Are simulators a viable alternative to industry competence cards? I didn't expect the conversation last night to take that turn. I mean, there was a couple of questions that really came out of left field, but I think were very, very valid. One was from Mick Norton talking about, has anyone ever used their competence gained with on a simulator in a court case, to defend themselves, perhaps in the aftermath of an accident. I thought that was very insightful. But when you think about the competence card schemes that we have today, even when they are proper, not the ones that you buy on the black market, but even when they're a proper card, they are but a snapshot. They prove that one person passed one test on one day. That does not make them competent. Whereas experience on a simulator, I realize that's not real world, but then neither is the classroom. Is that the alternative? And as I say, that came completely out of left field yesterday, and I want to explore it a bit more later in the show. So stick around for that if you possibly can. What have we got here? Do you ever get a thing where your head is in a different place to your body? You can't figure out what is bugging you? Dan? Yeah, all the time. All the time. My wife, we've been together now for 42 years. Well, it'll be 42 years next week, actually. We were together for a few years, got engaged, lived together, and then got married and so on. So 42 years. My wife is attuned, keyed in, dialed in to me. And sometimes just completely out of left field, she'll just go, "What's up?" "Oh, nothing." "No, there is. There's something bothering you." No, there's nothing bothering me." "There is." There is. Yeah, she picks up on it before I do. So yeah. And Dan says 2 weeks, can't figure out what it is. Maybe you're in need of a holiday, Dan. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe you just need to take a bit of a step back. Maybe not. Maybe you need to book yourself a very, very cheap last-minute flight over to ConExpo and go and walk among the diggers and clear your head a little bit. Anyway, people, let's crack on, because our news story today, it's got my goat, I'm afraid. Back after this. Now, I won't share that quite yet. I've got something standing by, which I'll show you in a minute. But I'd like you to use your imaginations. Imagine you are the type of operator, labourer, whatever it might be, and you do a little bit of work off the side. You're self-employed anyway, so you're perfectly at liberty to do so. And you get a phone call out of the blue that somebody says, "I understand you in your spare time you dig the occasional pond." You say, "Yeah, I do that. I've got a mini excavator. I can dig a pond, not a problem at all." "How big is the pond?" And the guy says, "Well, yeah, probably about 12-foot square or thereabouts." "Okay, how deep do you want it?" "Oh, about 4 foot. I want to put a few koi carp in there and stuff like that." "Yeah, okay." "And you want it lined?" "Yeah, okay." So in your head, you're doing some mental maths. It's going to take me a day to dig it out, maybe a day to reinstate. Lining will take another half day, and gradually you're building up in your head a price, and you think, maybe it's a couple of grand. Time I've got the materials, paid for the fuel, everything else, couple of grand. That's my starting point. You agree to meet the guy, and he's slightly out your normal area, so you jump in your car and you head off. And as you're driving along, the houses are getting posher and posher and posher. You eventually pull up on the guy's drive. where you find top of the range Range Rover parked beside a brand new Ferrari, parked beside a brand new Bugatti. Your mental maths is already ticking up a bit, okay? Then he comes out the house. The guy you've gone to meet comes out the house, and you recognise him immediately. He's a Premier League footballer. He's got the Rolex on his wrist. He's got the Gucci loafers on his feet. And again, your brain is thinking, couple of grand, double it, triple it. Okay, so that's how my brain works. I'll be honest with you. I've done it. I've done precisely that. You want a job doing? Oh, you've got a few quid, have you? Okay, I'll bump the cost up. So have a look at this, would you? This comes from Building Magazine today. There are two options currently under consideration for the restoration of Parliament. One of which, and this is not even the longest, one of which will take 61 years. Okay? Let me scroll down a little bit. Looking at the latest proposals for the restoration of the Houses of Parliament, there's one detail that jumps off the page. Much has been said about the urgent need to modernise the building, but it's the extraordinary duration of the programme of works proposed, up to 61 years for the longest recommended option, that has caught the attention of the industry. How can the refurbishment of one building, albeit a very large Grade 1 listed building, take more than 6 decades to complete? Here's the rub. Well, here's part of the rub. The timescale is only 15 years off the time that has elapsed since the last renovation. The last renovation was done in 1950. So that's, what is that, 1950, 76 years ago. So even if they started the restoration today and it lasted for 61 years, the bits that were renovated in 1950 would also be due for renovation. That initially got my goat, okay? But here's the other bit. The 61-year option, called enhanced maintenance and improvement and costing up to £39.2 billion, is not actually the longest on the table. Out of the 4 options under consideration, the longest is a simplified EMI program, which would take 84 years to finish. A minimum duration of 52 years. It would also be the most expensive, potentially costing £56.3 billion, if adjusted for inflation. That's almost 3 times as much as the entire Crossrail program. And Crossrail was taking the piss anyway. At best, the current price is £39.2 billion. At worst, at present, the price is £56.3 billion. Those are figures for today. Factor in the rises in fuel, the rises in materials cost, the rise in inflation. How much is that likely to cost? And while you're thinking about that, 2 other things to consider. This much needed refurbishment program. Who's paying for that? It's not Keir Starmer digging through his back pocket. It's not the King, who's just up the road. It's us, the British taxpayer. And while you're thinking about that, nearly 40 billion on current prices to refurbish a building that a large proportion of MPs can't even be asked to attend most of the time. If there's a chance of them getting on the telly, or if there's something particularly important to discuss, yes, both sides of the house are rammed to the rafters. But you have a look at the question time on days when it's a bit quieter, or when there's just a major or a minor adjustment to a bill to be discussed. There's the speaker, one man and his dog. £40 billion for that. £40 billion, while there are people that can't afford to heat their homes, while there are young people who can't afford to feed their children. £40 billion to enhance the luxury of a building for people that can't even be asked to visit it. Let me go over to the chat. Let's have a look. What do we got? What do we got here? Would you prefer working alongside a guy who's had hours of experience on a simulator or someone who's learned on the job? Someone who's learned on the job. I make no bones about that. But let me fire that back at you, Gary. Who would you rather work alongside? Someone that has a piece of plastic that says they're competent, or someone that has a digital track record, albeit on a simulator, that proves they're competent? Which one would you prefer? Ken Hatcher has just joined us. Morning, Ken. Lee Mansfield says, "Where is that, mate?" If you're talking about that, we're talking about the Houses of Parliament. You know, that big. I mean, I have to say, it is quite a grand building in Westminster. But yeah, Dan. Oh my God, 61 years, Jesus. Where are they going to get people to? There's another point. Okay. I would imagine part of the issue that is driving this to 61 plus years is obviously, the need to keep it open, but also I would imagine there's a fair bit of craftsmanship, stonemasonry, the sort of skills that are largely dying out. I'm sure there is a degree of that. Imagine being the construction company committing to doing that kind of work that will run for another 6 decades. You'd be hard pushed to find a decent amount of qualified and experienced stonemasons today. How many will you be able to find in 60 years' time? They're already at it. There's a North London demo firm in there for the last 2 years, and the guys have to go through the full identity and criminal past. I'm not surprised at that. Having been there a few times, you don't just stroll in. Unlike the young ladies visiting Prince Andrew, apparently, allegedly. DB checks, financial checks, yeah, absolutely. Wouldn't it be cheaper to knock it down and rebuild it block by block? It probably would. It probably would. And, bearing in mind, we are talking about the public purse here. And I understand the need. I'm not advocating for it to be demolished, unless we could organise it for it to be demolished with all the MPs still in it. I'm not advocating for that at all. It is a historic building. It has history and everything else. I'm not advocating for that at all. But is that truly reflective of the modern world, for one thing? And would it not be better just to take all the MPs out, even if it was for 10 years, stick them in a nice fancy schmancy air-conditioned tower block somewhere, let them go about their business, let the builders go about their business, get the whole thing rattled off in next to no time, and then put the MPs back? Would that not be a more sensible solution? I'd like to know where the government is getting all this money from. Us poor sods. That's precisely where it can. If you really concentrate, if you really think about it, can you feel a slight stirring in your back pocket? Can you feel that? Like somebody's slipping a few digits in there? Yeah, it's Keir Starmer. He's dipping your back pocket as we speak to the tune of £39 billion. How the fuck would it take 60 years? Yeah. Well, as I say, I mean, I'm sure it's complicated. I'm sure there is a case of, very sensitive removal of certain elements, refurbishing them and then putting them back. I understand that. It's historic and everything else. But seriously, 60 years? Could you actually do that with a straight face? Yeah, even if you're a major contractor and somebody says, how long is it going to take? 61 years. You're what now? Sorry, I could have sworn you said 61 years. No, I did say 61 years. Are you having a fucking laugh? How much is this going to cost over 61 years? Less than 40 billion. How much less? A couple of £100,000. What does all that say? About the construction industry in this country, but more specifically, what does that say about the procurement processes in government-backed schemes? Imagine going to a private company and saying, your new head office, yeah, we're going to refurb it. It's going to take 61 years and it's going to cost 39 billion. the answer would be 2 words. The second one would be off and you'd be out the door. But with the government, yeah, it seems reasonable. 61 years, drop in the ocean. Gary says this country is so fucked up right now. It does feel like that. Dan, yeah, absolutely. 40 billion and veterans on the street and there's homeless families. Yeah, exactly. Ken says mad, but it does need tidying up. It does, but there is don't be fooled into thinking that this thing is never maintained. I was in there 6-9 months ago, something like that, and there's work going on right now. You know, there was a cherry picker in the Palace of Westminster up in the air doing a bit of work up there. There was a couple of mini excavators outside, so there is work ongoing. This is not stop everything. It's falling down. We need to refurb it. There is ongoing maintenance taking place. Jim says, put it out on a long-term lease, build a new Parliament building in the middle of the country. Yeah, well, again, is it still reflective of the nation? I mean, listen, I'm a born and raised Londoner. I believe London is not just the centre of the world; it's the centre of the known universe. But is it actually appropriate for Parliament to be located in London? Think about how the BBC has reflected its sort of wider brief. And I realise people have their issues with the BBC, but they've upped sticks and moved to Manchester because it's more centralish to their area. Yeah. Jamie says, knowing that our tax will be paying for it, I prefer money to go to remediation of the flammable cladding on buildings around the country, seeing how we'll likely pick that tab up anyways. Yeah, I mean, there is another thing. You know, obviously we've been talking about Didcot, we'll be talking about Didcot next year, but you think about that. You know, we are nearly 8 years, probably 8 years on from Grenfell, and it exposed the hazard of flammable cladding up and down the country, hundreds of buildings. We also know that there's hundreds of these large panel system buildings. There's people living in buildings that could quite easily partially collapse. We know all of that, but where are we going to put our money? Are we going to put it into protecting families, solving homelessness, preventing fires, preventing building collapses, or are we going to spend it all on MPs who don't actually bother to go to the building? It's Big Ben area. Yeah, it's next door. Yeah. If Guy Fawkes had succeeded, we wouldn't be facing this problem. Yes. Well, every once in a while, I do like to revisit the movie V for Vendetta. I mean, I actually think the movie's fantastic anyway. But, you know, remember the 5th of November. We've just finished paying for Big Ben refurbishment, which probably cost hundreds of millions. Yeah. And I've got to be honest, I mean, it's an incredible building, and the bell. I mean, I've literally stood by the bell while it was being rung. I'm sure there's a better word for that, but I've stood right by it. But there are still bits and pieces around the actual bell itself, which are made of chicken wire. So yeah. Better some guys going through the doors there. And what about the company's finances burden? Will they get paid on time? I'm sure they will get paid on time. Yeah, absolutely. I'll probably be dead by then. Still working and with a walking aid. Yeah, I mean, listen. I don't expect to live to 106. I don't expect to live to 125. Chances are I'm not going to see that finished. But then most of you won't either. I could do that in 61 years. Mind you, I'd be dead before it's finished. Imagine. I mean, I'm only saying this slightly tongue-in-cheek. There will be people that are negotiating that contract who will walk away. They'll go back to their head office and say, lads, we've got it. We've got a pipeline of work for the next 60 years. There's 41 billion pounds going to flow through the doors, and I'll never see it finished because I'm retiring next year. Think about that. Lee Mansfield says they'd be better off building a new one. I agree 100%. Jim says, I've been in the House of Commons where the front benches are all the way down to Downing Street. Our old headmaster sorted it on a primary school trip. I'd rather go to see Big Ben. I've done both. And I've got to be honest, I found Big Ben way more interesting. I realise that you know, the Palace of Westminster, Houses of Parliament are the seat of power and everything else. But by and large, it's just a big building with a whole heap of statues. and some very high ceilings. Whereas Big Ben is kind of more iconic, I guess. Dan says, I've got a few mates in there for that demo firm. You have to give your phone in on the way in and collect it on the way out. Yeah, I know. Funny enough, I was talking to a mate of mine last night who was on a job. Who was doing exactly the same thing. They were given the option, and it's not military. I think it's like petrochemical or something like that. He was given the option when he first went to the job: either hand in your phone on the way in and pick it up on the way out, or give us your phone. We will strip out everything related to social media, and then you can have your phone back. Yeah. Nearly taking as long as my barn conversion. My electrician had a fatal heart attack the other week. 90% finished, but no idea what was done and not done. Oh, blimey, that's sad. That's sorry state to hear. Perfect and sinless. Link to join. There is no link to join. We just broadcast each and every day. Well, each and every working day. No link to join. Although I would question if you are truly perfect and sinless, I wonder if this is the show for you. Andy Dalvell is back with us. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Dan was right. I'm on HS2 doing Sweet F8. And doesn't that just tie into everything we've just said? HS2, the giant white elephant that it is. I warned Andy. I went there once, and I spent more time going through drug and alcohol testing and inductions than I did actually working. And I was only there to take some photographs. So that's the absolute truth. Sean Hughes is here as well. Gary, truth be told, our grandchildren will be paying for Big Ben's refurb. Yeah, and probably their grandchildren will be paying for the Houses of Parliament. Yeah. And Andy Thornton has just arrived. Good morning, Andy. If you no, it's too late. I was going to say, if you look to this side of the screen, you would have seen the last of the feathers on the dancing girls disappearing out of view, but you've missed that. Can't wait to see the buildings the Americans complete with the occupants. Can't we sell the buildings to the Americans complete with the occupants? Who would want them? British MP, slightly used, lightly soiled. Yours for nothing. Who would want those? I wonder how many MPs mates will be pricing the job. All of them. There is, in all likelihood, there is probably a construction company being formed right now with sleeping partners and non-executive directors called Starmer. Guarantee. Yeah, Gary. Andy knows he's Mr. Dancing Girls, and Andy W. I'm only here for 3 days. Had to do a day and a half induction for the pleasure. How does that make sense? Please make that make sense. I'm going to be here for 3 days, and I'm going to spend a day and a half being inducted. Gee. And there, people, there is your 39 billion quid at the Houses of Parliament. We're going to spend so long talking about it and inducting people and making sure they're not posting secret photographs from inside on Facebook. 3 days work, 1.5 days inductions. The world has gone mad. Let's crack on, shall we? Let's have a bit of this. Andy Dalvell says the first day of induction has nothing to do with the actual job. Seriously, I know it. Anybody listening to this for the first time, I've told this story so many times, but anybody listening to this, just take this as a snapshot of the realities of the UK construction industry. I was required to do a bit of photography and a bit of filming at HS2 down at Eustonish. I am driving a camera. That's me. That's let me pretend it wasn't this, but yeah, there we are. That's me doing my job. I had to undergo a half-day induction, including a complete drug and alcohol test. I had urine samples. I was followed into the Kazi by a young lady who clearly didn't want to be there. And frankly, she gave me stage fright, so I'd rather she wasn't there either, just to drive a camera. Yeah. Okay, should we do something a little more cheery than that? Tell you what, let's look ahead. Hyundai, call them what you will. They're going to be at ConExpo in about a week and a half's time, and they will be bringing with them, should I say, the new HX400 or the next generation thereof. And this is what she looks like.
Building a comfortable tomorrow.
Breaking news, people. Breaking news. Immediately after this from our friend Mr. Darville, who says, has a designer left Volvo and moved to Hyundai? I know exactly what you're saying. There was a certain similarity, wasn't there? We don't often get to use this, but fuck it. Today, we're going to use it. Nothing whatsoever to do with construction, demolition, equipment, but you may remember in years to come where you were when you heard this news. In case you can't read it on a very little screen, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, the artist formerly known as Prince Andrew, has been arrested. He's been arrested and he's in custody on suspicion of misconduct in public office. This is coming in live from the BBC. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has been arrested. Police say King Charles's brother is in custody. Officers are carrying out searches at addresses in Berkshire and Norfolk. Photos show vehicles believed to be police cars arriving at the Sandringham estate in Norfolk earlier this morning on his 66th birthday. Yeah, it's a breaking story. As somebody says here, this arrest should not be seen as an indication of guilt. There are no charges yet. Andrew has consistently denied any wrongdoing. All true? Please feel free to consider how often you see fire or smoke without fire. That's a whole other story. But yes, you heard it. Well, you may have heard it here first. Andrew, what's his name now? Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, arrested today. Yeah, just happened. Chris Ford, not interested in any of that. He says, must admit, I can't fault the HX Hyundai. No, I've not had a huge amount of stick time on a Hyundai, but the couple of times I have been very impressed. So yes, it's going to be hard to compete with that, but we will do our level best. What have we got next? While Andrew is waiting for the arrival of the porridge, let's do this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Yeah, we're going to head off to South Africa next, where Volvo is doing Volvo things.
Right now we're on a site here in Nigel in Gauteng. My name's Trevor. I work for a company called Crusher Green. We're a company that crushes whatever might need to be crushed to produce aggregates. We've been going for about 8 years now. When the company was first started, the name Crusher Green actually was created because we are a company that recycles materials. We do a lot of crushing of concrete, of waste rubble. Since then we have branched out into taking down stockpiles and old mine dumps and things like that. So basically everything we do is recycling of material. Being a company that's dealt with yellow machines for quite a long time, we obviously became exposed to Volvo machines. We were always quite impressed with them. We got into the market where we did need some new machinery. Volvo was an option. We got hold of them at that point, and we were really impressed with the efficiency of the way they financed it, the way they went about putting the deals together. And we've never looked back since then. On diesel consumption, we really are impressed with them. When we're operating various machines and many machines, a litre or two an hour per machine definitely does have a knock-on effect to our financial well-being. But more than anything, it's all about Volvo's after sales. The downtime on machines are really expensive. Every machine's got a knock-on effect where one machine going down will end up meaning 5 machines standing. So downtime is a crucial thing, and for me that's the area that Babcock actually sticks out way above their opposition, is that when I've got a problem I make a phone call and the problem is sorted out much faster than what I've dealt with any other company. From an operator's point of view, my guys talk to me all the time. They really like the machines, they really like the control panels, all the warnings that they do get. Maintaining the machine for them is quite easy as well. They enjoy the smoothness of the machines. I also used to get a lot of complaints from them about other machines being underpowered, where with the Volvo machine, not one of them has ever come to me and said the machine's lacking power or any of those type of things. My operators love the machine. We're very happy with Babcock at the moment. Obviously a concern for any company is that they start becoming casual, and I would never like to see our relationship with them go casual. For me, more of the same. Continue to treat any breakdown as urgent. Continue to hold our hands through financing future machines. Perhaps we get bigger, we go into bigger machinery, and walk the road with Volvo all the way.
Yeah, well done, Volvo, over in South Africa. We've now got a ticker going across the bottom of the screen. Don't use them very often, but it is breaking news, and it is, constitutionally, I think it is an important thing. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, formerly Prince Andrew, the artist formerly known as Prince Andrew, has been arrested. Yeah, absolutely. It's happened while we've been doing this. Who the hell expected that? It doesn't prove he's done anything wrong. Even if he has done anything wrong, slap on the wrist at best. But it happened while you were watching this show. Mull that over while I do this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
We've been to South Africa, and next up we're going to Pennsylvania with Hitachi.
We're just outside Scranton, Pennsylvania, at a concrete and asphalt plant, running Sodex's solution, which is a LiDAR scanner mounted on top of our wheel loader, scanning piles. So they're getting real-time inventory information on their stockpiles to help manage their day-to-day operations. Hitachi's been one of the leaders in manufacturing equipment, and we're trying to also now bring solutions to our machines at the same time.
The people from the site, they care about their inventory values. So they want to know how much of which material they have in stock. And usually right now in many plants, they just fly with the drone once a month or even once a quarter or half year. So most of the time they do not have the precise values of each material. And what we can do, we automate the whole process. Sodex puts a unit like we see it up there on top of the machine. It comes with LiDAR, camera and GPS. And it measures all the volumes of all the piles here. And for the company, they get a real-time dashboard and see the values of their inventory. In the morning, when the wheel load operator starts operating, he just turns on the machine. As soon as the machine is turned on, the system automatically turns on as well. There is nothing the operator has to do in the wheel loader. He's just doing what he's doing anyways all day long.
Our wheel loaders do really well in this environment. Our high capacity machines are built for this, for feeding hoppers and things at asphalt plants and concrete plants. And it mixes perfectly well with this solution of trying to help customers manage their inventory.
Sodex could be a great addition to our fleet. We do a lot of GPS technology, drone technology, and different technologies for monitoring stockpiles at our mines and at various quarries and job sites. The Sodex technology, we believe, will be a huge asset for a fixed location at our blacktop and concrete plant. We keep over 30,000 tons of aggregate. We ship out about 2,000 tons a day, and we bring in about 2,000 tons a day, and it's used in various applications for asphalt and concrete.
Honestly, it will help. It's just taking labor hours off the boards of having somebody go out and look at the piles every day, or somebody misinterpreting how much is in a pile by eye. We would actually replace our month-end inventory with this technology, because right now our month-end inventory, we have to fly the drone, somebody has to compile that data, turn it into dollars and cents for the accountants. This is great. I don't know why somebody didn't think of this before.
Hitachi is very open to working with third-party technology companies and helping provide more solutions to our customers on top of the machine itself. Customers are looking for ways to improve their business, to be more efficient, and that's what we're here to help with.
Yeah, enjoying that a lot. It kind of plays into our morning monologue today. This idea of using digital transformation not to replace people, but to enhance people, which is precisely what we're talking about. In case you've just joined us, you can see across the bottom of the screen there. Yeah, quite a big deal today. Didn't see that coming. It's weird. Didn't see it coming, and yet it feels oddly overdue. If you see what I mean. Let's get back to the show, because we've got one more film to show you after this. Could somebody do me a favor and just type, even if it's one letter or an emoji or something like that, type that in the chat. The chat has gone silent. We had, I won't bore you with it, but we had a bunch of comments in from Twitch all of a sudden. And then the actual chat, our usual bit of chat, has got up. Thank you, Dan. Thank you. You're back. Yeah. Jamie says, you wonder what fate actually awaits Andrew. I suspect Ghislaine incarceration. I suspect, like Ghislaine, incarceration will be cushy if it gets that far, or will his connections keep him from punishment? He's not going down, is he? Let's be absolutely honest. I think further ostracization or whatever it might be, see out his days in in isolation somewhere. He's not going to spend any time behind bars, is he? Let's be absolutely honest about it. Yes, I've just done the comics. This time in 2 weeks' time, I will be footsore and longing for British food by that point. Not because American food's bad, because it's not. American food is great, but there's just so much of it. So yes, this time in 2 weeks, I will be kind of missing home. However, I do want to get to see this lot. This is LGMG. Yep, yet another Chinese manufacturer, massive, full range, and we know nothing about them yet. Going back to not Lord Mountbatten, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. He will never see a 6x5 pen. No, he will not. He will not be sharing a cell with Big Dave. He won't. That's the way it works. Yeah, that pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into my morning monologue. If you can't stick around for that, please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. I hope to see you again very soon. Tomorrow is the last show of the week. And after that, there's just 4 more before I'm gone. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I shall return after this. The UK demolition and construction industry's various competence card schemes are deeply flawed. Even when the rules and protocols of obtaining a card are strictly applied, they're merely a snapshot, proof that someone passed a test on one specific day. But as we all know, that alone is no proof of on-the-job competence. Sadly, as we also know, that is merely the tip of the iceberg. If you know where to look and are willing to pay for it, these competence cards are easy to obtain without all those annoying exams. You can pay to have someone sit the test for you, or you can bypass the entire system and purchase a card from the black market over on Instagram. Just this week, we reported on a police raid at a CSCS training centre where it's alleged trainers were accepting payments to grease the wheels of qualification. And frankly, that's only a part of the problem with the training regime in general and with the card schemes in particular. We find ourselves trapped in a frustrating training conundrum. We're desperate for skilled operators, yet we face a massive, understandable reluctance to let unproven rookies loose on multi-million-pound live sites. As a result, we'll rely on a system where foundational training often takes place in a classroom, theoretical, sterile, and entirely detached from the reality of a site. But there is potentially a better way. Last night, I hosted a live stream featuring Alan Limoges of machine simulator pioneer CM Labs. Their simulators are not designed to facilitate remote machine control, nor are they the first step toward autonomous operation and the eradication of workers from sites. Instead, CM Lab simulators are designed to inspire young people to enter the industry, allowing them to experience the feel of operating heavy equipment without the inherent risks and the inherent fuel costs. They're built to prepare workers for the realities of the field and to help them enhance their skills. And following last night's discussion, it's clear that high-fidelity simulation potentially offers a path to not only safer training, but a more robust, portable, and verifiable standard of operator competence. Currently, obtaining a competence card in the UK is a bureaucratic and clerical experience rather than a true validation of skill. A trainee might sit in a room, pass a multiple choice test on safety demands, perform a brief practical assessment, and if they don't hit a cone, they're competent. And at best, that's a snapshot assessment. It captures an operator's performance on a single day, often influenced by the subjective opinion of an instructor. As Alan Limoges pointed out last night, a trainee might claim an instructor failed them simply because they didn't like my vibe. Conversely, a candidate might pass despite possessing inefficient or dangerous habits that the examiner simply missed in that narrow window. Digital simulators dismantle that subjectivity. When an operator trains on a simulator, they're not just completing a task, they're generating a massive, indisputable data set. The system records everything: fuel burn rates, idle time, downtime, down to the second, engine torque, hydraulic pressure, and track wear. That allows for an objective assessment based on hard metrics. An instructor no longer needs to rely on a gut feeling. They can say, to pass, you must achieve 80% efficiency, 0 collisions, and burn less than 5 litres per hour. Furthermore, that data transforms training from a Polaroid into a motion picture. Instructors can track trends over weeks, seeing if a student is actually reducing their fuel consumption or if their safety score is trending upwards. It provides a quantifiable trajectory of skill acquisition that a one-off practical test simply cannot replicate. Now, a common point of resistance to simulator training is the increasingly archaic belief that it can't replicate the feel of a heavy machine. Critics argue that a screen can't replace the seat of a real dozer. However, the technology has evolved far beyond simple gaming engines. We're now dealing with engineering-grade physics. CM Labs, for instance, utilizes what they call Vortex Studio, a physics engine originally designed for engineering specifications. In a lesser simulator or a video game, events are scripted. If the player does X, the code triggers Y. But in a high-fidelity simulation, the machine and the environment are built with independent, rigorous physics. If an operator flips a machine in this environment, it's not because the software decided it was time for a game over or a break period. It's because the operator took a corner too fast with a heavy load, shifting the center of gravity exactly as they would in the dirt. And that realism is vital for tactile feedback. Through motion platforms and OEM-grade joysticks, operators feel the vibration and the resistance of the earth. And that minimizes what is known as negative training, the acquisition of bad habits that occurs when a simulator feels too floaty compared to the real thing. If a machine can be overextended without consequence, the operator learns a false sense of security. For the demolition sector specifically, the argument for simulation is even stronger. You can't practice demolishing the same building twice. In the real world, once a slab is broken or a column's been sheared, that specific training opportunity is gone forever. Simulators offer Simulators offer the ultimate luxury for a demolition trainee, the restart button. An operator can learn how to use a hydraulic hammer on a concrete slab, make a catastrophic mistake, and then instantly reset the scenario to try again. They can practice sorting debris with a grapple until they do it faster and cleaner every time. That repetitive, low-stakes practice builds muscle memory in a way that is financially and logistically impossible on a live site, where fuel costs a fortune and materials are finite. And obviously, this capability extends to safety. Operators can be exposed to dangerous scenarios that would never be risked in real life. They can experience what it feels like to tip a skid steer, clip a power line, or have a crane cable snap. Learning the limits of the machine in a virtual environment ensures they respect those limits when lives are actually on the line. And perhaps the most revolutionary aspect of shifting to digital qualifications is the portability of the training record. In the current analog model, an operator's history is often just a list of dates on a plastic card or a CV that may well have been embellished. A digital competence profile, I'm going to do that one. I'm going to do it one more time. I'm going to do it right this time. A digital competence profile follows the operator. That has profound implications for recruitment. CV padding or resume padding is a known issue. An applicant might claim 10 years on a motor grader when they've actually only had 2. With simulator-based assessments, an employer can put a candidate on the machine for 10 minutes during an interview. The digital report will immediately reveal if their skills match their claims, saving the company the administrative and safety costs of hiring somebody that is lying through their teeth. This record also facilitates continuous professional development. Training doesn't end when the card is issued. Veteran operators can return to the simulator to sharpen their edge. A veteran might reduce their loading time from 2 minutes to 1 minute and 50 seconds through concentrated repetition, an efficiency gain that translates to thousands of pounds in savings over a year. Now, the UK already has the infrastructure to adopt this. The CITB is apparently exploring simulation technology, and the precedent exists elsewhere as well. In Germany, crane operators have been certified for real-world operation using simulator time because the fidelity was deemed sufficient by national certifiers. And of course, some might argue that time on a simulator doesn't truly prepare an operator for a real machine on a live site. And it's a fair point, which is not why no one is advocating for trainees leaping off a simulator and being handed the keys to an excavator immediately. Consistently high scores on a simulator may not be definitive proof of real-world competence, but they are a far better guide than a piece of plastic bought on the black market via Instagram. If you were here last night, you'll have heard some of those arguments previously. The one that I found most interesting and probably the most enlightening was the point that Alan Limoges raised about flight simulators. In a week and a half's time, I'll be stepping on board a plane. I don't know what type of plane, a Boeing something or other. And I'll be flying 11 hours or thereabouts from London, to Las Vegas. 400, 500 passengers on board. And the guys sat up front cut their teeth on a simulator. In order to actually become a pilot, you have to rack up a number. I don't know what the number is, but you have to rack up a number of simulator hours. And I know in this side of the industry, it's not the same. A flight simulator isn't the same. But what it does give you is that mental and physical muscle memory. If you are fully conversant with what button does what lever does what, you've used it so many times that it is already second nature. The leap from simulator to excavator, the leap from simulator to Boeing 747 is less of a leap than somebody coming in completely cold. And that idea of a snapshot, an airline pilot doesn't sit an exam on one day when perhaps they perform particularly well and somebody says, okay, here's the keys. I'm sure they don't start with the key, but here's the keys to a Boeing 747. You're now ready to fly transatlantic. Nobody's advocating for that. But as a tool of inspiration to go around schools, colleges, universities, to give young people a kind of a feel for the industry, as a way to actually check the skills, to refresh skills, to upgrade skills. And I know somebody asked the question. I think it was Nigel Williams asked the question last night about the sharing of data. And Andrew was very clear. Alan was very clear on the fact that there is no sharing of data, which I think is an important consideration. But what about the retention of that information? Your little piece of plastic tells part of the story. But what if you were one of those that is really, into this as an industry? You're not just a warm body. You're not just a seat warmer. You are somebody that you're planning to spend your entire career in this, and you've got your competence card, via the usual means, but you want to upskill. You want to be constantly improving. You want to improve your productivity. You want to reduce your fuel consumption. You want to become a more valuable member of your company's team. To be able to take your digital results from 6 months ago and then compete against yourself in a very safe environment and then possibly get an upgrade as a result of that. What's not to love about that as an idea? Let's go over to the chat. Jamie says, can a red card or... I feel like I've missed something. Can a red card or sim teach you to do this? Teach you to do what? Don't know. Andy Thornton says they're different things. Competence cards are, or should be, built on evidence of real-world performance, whereas simulators measure capability. Competence cards certify competence. Andy, you and I generally see eye to eye on things. On this occasion, I don't think we do. Competence cards should certify competence, but they do not. I think there is a degree of subjectivity. I think there are concerns about, the actual source of those cards. There's a lot of black market cards out there. There's a lot of spurious cards out there. I think all of that has damaged it. But we're currently working in an industry here where if you go to work on, for example, HS2 or Hinckley or any of these major projects, a card will get you on the site. It'll get your foot through the door, but you will then be expected to prove that you can do what your card says you can do. And if we're at the point where we're not actually trusting the cards, A, is the card scheme actually worthwhile? And I would question that. And B, if it's not worthwhile, what do we replace it with? If we could replace it with something that, I don't know how the results are presented, but if you could actually, as a potential employer, look at somebody's score on a simulator and say, oh look, they're trending upwards, and all the safety's up, fuel burn is down, and so on down the line. But also they've racked up all these hours. There's been a gradual and marked improvement on all of their KPIs, their key performance indicators. That, to my mind, sells more of a story than a little bit of plastic that you may have obtained via the back alley. Peter says, evening all. Yeah, we went all night last night and we've carried on this morning. I think it's 800 hours flight simulators, as Mrs. Sun has done it, or is doing exactly that. So 800 hours. Now, 800 hours sounds like a lot. But if you're going to turn somebody loose on an aircraft where you're flying 400, 500, 600 people at a time, not bad. Not a bad idea, I don't think. But in an industry as exacting as aviation, they are setting their standards via simulators, and yet we still treat them with suspicion. Now, don't get me wrong. Operating a modern excavator, modern dozer, modern grader, wheel loader, it's complex. There's a lot to take into account. But is it more complicated than flying a plane? Is it more demanding than flying a plane? Is it potentially more hazardous than flying a plane? You fuck up on an excavator, potentially you could kill yourself. Maybe you could take out 2 or 3 of your colleagues. You fuck up on a plane, you're taking out hundreds of people, both those that are on the plane and the people that you land on. The aviation industry sees simulators as a key to actual competence, and we currently don't. Dan says, then he has to do 450 hours sitting in a plane with 2 captains, do multiple tests every day and or night at classes. Seems fair enough. Jamie says, I've been asked how much dozer experience I have on a recent job applications. I've told them approximately 40 weeks, under 1,800 hours. Makes more sense than saying I got a card in July 2024. Yeah, it does. And I realise they're 2 different things: competence and experience. Think about my job. When I started to do this thing that I'm doing now, I was competent. I knew how to start a live stream. I knew how to end a live stream. I knew how to turn the microphone on. I knew how to turn the camera on. I knew how to turn the light on. And I had a few buttons to press. So I was competent. I was at the time that I started, I was a competent live streamer. But I've been doing this now for 6 years. I've got 1,094 of these shows. That's without all the evening shows and the weekends and everything else. More than 1,000 of these shows under my belt. I am now competent and experienced. I can make this stream look better. I can make the chat work better. I can fix problems as I go along. I can spot potential problems before they take me offline. I can things like, the Andrew Mountbatten Windsor breaking news. If somebody had handed me breaking news when I did my first 10, 20, 100 shows, that would have been me lost. I had everything planned, and now all of a sudden I've got this to deal with. Now, just take it in my strides, put it on the screen, talk about it, because I have both competence and experience. What our current card scheme does not reflect is that vital combination of those 2 things. I've passed a test. I always say this, I passed my O-level in mathematics. I am not a mathematician. I passed a test on one day based on a bit of homework that I kind of did a couple of weeks before. I passed one test on one day and somebody said, "You are qualified." Am I? Was I? Nope. It was purely a snapshot. Dan says the problem is not too many companies actually check online to see if the cards are real or not. What's in it for them if they do? If you've gone to, I'm thinking specifically agencies here, if you've said to an agency, we need 4 excavator operators to work on 20-ton machines for the next 6 weeks, and 4 guys turn up on the first day, and you decide, I'm going to check out their cards, and it turns out that 1, 2, 3 of them have obtained their cards by spurious means. Your job is now delayed while you get a replacement. Is it not easier? I'm not saying it's safer. I'm not saying it's better, but is it not easier to just, those cards are the right color. Crack on, lads. Whereas if rather than a piece of plastic, if there was a requirement to actually log into a system, Dan Cullen has arrived. Let's check him out. Dan, age, date of birth, address, punched in, bosh. Oh yeah, you did 1,500 hours on that simulator. You did that. You've qualified that. Yep, you're on. Crack on, mate. There's the keys. Knock yourself out. My other half son has been training for 5 years between school. 100,000 imp. Don't know what that is. Hats off to you, Jamie, for not spinning stories to employers. Bet that was the motorcade that passed sight yesterday. Andrew being arrested, could well be. One of my latest posts on LinkedIn, says Peter, now has over 100,000 impressions in only 3 days. Do you think people are listening? I don't want to burst your bubble, but, I burst my own bubbles on a fairly regular basis. I have got videos that have knocked up 47 million views. Have they changed the world at all? No, they haven't. I think if you're playing the averages, Peter, I'm speaking specifically to you here. If you've got 100,000 impressions, congratulations, that is a fantastic achievement. And the law of averages says that among that 100,000 people, there may well be the people that you are targeting and that need to hear what you have to say. The real indicator is what happens after that, what happens, offline. And just very quickly, I don't know if anyone is aware of this, but Peter was on a podcast talking about his HGV network and everything else. Top work, Peter. I think that is really how you reach people. Because you know full well, out of that 100,000 people over on LinkedIn, regardless of what a great achievement that is, how many of those are genuinely interested or able to change things that you are looking to change? I always say the same. A video that's done 47 million. There's not 47 million people working in the demolition industry. There isn't. So I know for a fact that I've got tire kickers, I've got children, I've got mums who have pressed the wrong button, and it's a non-starter as a metric. I do want to say good morning to Content with Media. Just joined us over on Instagram. I don't know whether that's Peter or Lucas or potentially both, but Peter, Lucas, good morning to you. Hope to see you over in Las Vegas. I agree. You are competent and experienced, but a simulator would say you fail to deliver your monologues because you repeat bits, but that would miss the reality that you're in fact a very good orator. Yeah, but again, if I'll be absolutely honest with you, I hate the fact that I stumble over my words and despite the fact that I wrote the damn thing, that I failed to read it in the right way. If I had the opportunity to sit here with a simulator to go over, improve my pronunciation, my enunciation, improve my ability to read publicly and to speak publicly, you're damn right. I'd seize the chance. I'm always looking to improve this thing. Peter says, Dan, DVLA has a huge problem at the moment with people taking driving tests for other people. So construction is no different from transport, different than transport nowadays. I'm sure I've mentioned this before. My father-in-law, God bless him, no longer with us, but my father-in-law used to run a print company or a print department of a wider company. And he interviewed somebody, young girl, interviewed them. They came across very, very well, and out of the dozen or so people that he interviewed, she was by far the best. Phoned up, offered her the job. Fantastic, you start 2 weeks on Friday. Fantastic. And then a woman turned up. It was like, well, that's a different person, but he couldn't prove it. And it took a few weeks, but ultimately they were required to leave. But yeah, one person had attended the interview, clearly somebody that was very good at interviews, and then somebody else turned up for the job. Yeah. Peter says, think you need someone like me in construction. We need lots of people like you, Peter. Yeah. The one thing I would say, and Peter, I'm sure you must feel this sometimes. Sometimes I feel with this show, like last night, we had an absolutely fantastic conversation last night, and I do feel like we're doing a public service. We're offering insight and information and a bit of entertainment along the way. But there are times where I genuinely feel like I might as well just go and piss in the wind. As somebody that's a step removed, and Peter, you're to a degree, you're the same because of your health issues. You've got the ability to take a step back and see, the full picture of the the haulage industry. Same as I've got the ability, because I'm sat in an office here, I can take a step back and look at the wider demolition construction industry, and I can see where maybe it could be better, maybe it could be a lot better, maybe there are things that we do that we shouldn't be doing anymore. And sometimes I feel like I'm getting through to people. When you bump into people at exhibitions or seminars or conferences, and they say, we really took to heart that thing you said about that thing. And then other times it's like, I'm really not sure why I bother. We did an hour and 20 minutes last night on simulators. We've done another half an hour today on simulators purely as a training device. Are the CITB, CSCS, CPCS, NOCN, the NDTG, are they all sat there thinking, that Mark Anthony's got a point, we need a bit of this? Probably not. Probably not. Jim says, Peter, I listened. It was sound. I agree, 100% sound. It is an achievement for me after just over 13 months on LinkedIn as HGV networking group. Listen, Peter, you've made enormous strides. I mean this as a compliment. I genuinely do. I can't remember the last time I switched on LinkedIn and didn't see something from you. And it's not. I get a lot of shit on my LinkedIn. I get a lot of shit on my Instagram, my Facebook, my YouTube. Every time you put something on LinkedIn, it's like, oh, what? And I'll be honest, and I know it works both ways. I know you've taken some of my stuff and sort of twisted it around for your sector. I do the same. The number of times I've looked at something that you said and thought, God, blimey, he's got a point. That issue is exactly the same in construction. So Peter, keep up the good work. Jim says, the Andrew arrest is just a show for the public to see the government and royalty are doing the right thing for the country. It'll go nowhere. I agree 100%. I agree. And the BBC pictures show police cars going to Sandringham. And there's some shock that it was done on his 66th birthday. How long ago do you reckon this was arranged? Hello, the artist formerly known as Prince Andrew. We're going to arrest you. When are you available? Well, I've got nothing on my birthday. That do you? Yeah. Early morning? Yeah, because I want to get home for my cake. Yeah, fantastic. All right, yeah, we'll do that. I appreciate your feedback, good or bad. I'd rather that than people keep stum. Yeah, absolutely, same as me. Which is why I'll sit here and babble on. And if somebody, we had it last night. CM Labs had given up their time, and one of the first comments we had was vaguely negative, saying that simulators were going to steal jobs. We clarified the fact that was not the case with CM Labs. That's not their focus at all. They're not into autonomy. They're not into remote control. They are into training. That they're not putting people out of work. They're trying to get people into work. But I think that's a valid thing. If somebody's going to turn up and have a negative comment, at least you get the opportunity to chat it through. And I have to say, I do think Alan did it very, very well indeed. Jim says, sorry for the LinkedIn shit, Mark. I've got close on 12,000 followers, I think, over on Instagram, on LinkedIn now. And, by and large, when I go over there, I'll literally flick through like this, because I can't compute that level of input. My brain just isn't up to it. But the people that I know, the people I like, the people I respect, I've kind of become attuned. What's Jim said? What's Peter said? What's Peter Haddock said? The people that I'm tuned into, I'll stop and I'll take a moment, listen to what they're saying, read what they're saying, watch what they're saying. But everything else kind of just passes me. It's all caught in the flow as it heads on out to sea, never to be seen again in many instances. I feel awfully guilty. Over the past 24 hours, I have taken up more than 3.5 hours of your time, which is unforgivable. I can only apologise. I'll be back for the final show of the week tomorrow, yet more of the same. And then the countdown really does begin. I will be here on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Thursday afternoon, I will be jumping into my car. I won't. I'm not travelling by car, but I'll be heading on up to Leeds for the Institute of Demolition Engineers spring seminar at the Royal Armouries on the Friday. That's the 27th. Back here on the night of the 27th, dog to the kennels on the 28th, plane to Las Vegas on the 1st of March. And then I'll be gone and for a week and a bit. And even when I come back, it's going to be a flying visit, because I think we're back for 2 or 3 days, and then I'm back on the plane to go over to the pre-Samoteur meeting over in Verona in Italy. So make the most of me now. Make the most of me for the first 4 days of next week, because for the 2 weeks after that, it's going to be a bit sketchy. But after that, we'll be back, and we will have content for days. We will have content for days. You'll be bored with me talking about Verona and Las Vegas by the time I've finished, just in time to go and do it all again. So, people, go and have a fine and splendid day. I will thank you again for today, but more specifically, I'll thank you again for your input last night. CM Labs don't do these things very often, and to actually do it and then get a message while we were still broadcasting to say what a great conversation it was, I think I tip my hat to all of you. That's precisely why we do these things. Have a good day, people. Go think about simulators. Think about the artist formerly known as Prince Andrew, and I'll see you tomorrow. Till then, have a good one.